Obrigada, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chairman. Honourable members, thank you for allowing me to explain the situation that we're seeing in the Broadcasting Corporation in Galicia, the public media services. We've seen continuous violation of the principles of journalism, and these complaints have been made online content, and social networks have been subject to manipulation of data and information. This problem has been ongoing for more than 13 years now. And it goes back to 2009, affecting the implementation of a number of directives, constant manipulation of the information, as has already been mentioned in this committee.
En abril de 2017, o Comité de Empresa
We want to ensure that
con a retirada de umas declarações.
After his declaration of the manipulation of the information involving the removal of critical statements regarding the Galician government while maintaining his voice while compromising the dignity and professional image of the journalist. In May 2018, the information on CRTVG regarding the verdict of the National Court on the Gürtel case omitted details of the conviction of the Popular Party and the past of one of the convicts, Pablo Crespo, as the secretary of the organisation of the Galician PP. Furthermore, the instructions from the news direction were that the video of the verdict should last a maximum of 50 seconds, and the information was aired in the second half of the news half an hour later. In August 2018, the programme Bos Dias of TVG interviewed the president of the Francisco Franco Foundation to present his opinion on the exhumation of the dictator's remains from the Valle de los Caídos, which was about to be approved by the Spanish government. Also, in September 2022, CRTVG News reported on an event for the victims of Franco's regime, in which they reproduced a question from the far right wing from the YouTube channel, which was irrelevant to the event. In February 2023, the management of Radio Galega forced a journalist to modify a news item about the consumer price index to highlight inflation in Galicia, which was higher than that of the state. The journalist refused to modify it because there was no incorrect data. The news ended up being aired and manipulated by the radio management themselves. A few days later, the editor was transferred from Radio Galega to a miscellaneous programme on Galician television. Threats of disciplinary proceedings against workers, which were critical of management decisions, are an everyday issue at CRTVG. In May 2022, the Superior Court of Justice of Galicia condemned CRTVG for violating fundamental rights following a disciplinary proceeding against one of its journalists, Carlos Jiménez. The court found it proven that the disciplinary action was initiated against him for his active participation in the so-called Black Fridays protest by workers against manipulation in Galician public media, violating his freedom of expression. In January 2024, a month before the elections to the Galician Parliament, the Galician government attempted to silence the impact of bags of plastic pellets falling into the sea from the Tocanao boat, which began to arrive at the Galician coast in mid-December. CRTVG News followed the government's line, relegating the information in the first few days to 30 minutes after the news without giving a voice to the fishing sector or environmental associations. In the weeks leading up to the Galician elections, CRTVG's programming aligned with the electoral strategy of the Galician PP, affecting not only the news but also entertainment programmes that give greater visibility to the Popular Party's candidate for the presidency of the Junta. CRTVG's electoral coverage plan reduced by 40% the time dedicated to campaign information and eliminated PP competitors from the candidates' debate aired by Galician television, namely the Vox Group. The Central Electoral Board forced a modification to this coverage plan due to the reduction in political information time. The information about the debate in the next day's news also aligns with the electoral argumentation or arguments of the Popular Party or People's Party. All of these acts manipulating the information and reprisals against the workers who disagree with the editorial line of CRTVG management have led to a number of protests in the last 5 years supported by the workers. They are frequently a part of Galician society and journalist organisations from all over Spain and even international ones. We have turned to the European institutions through this complaint in order to demand the implementation of measures that ensure compliance with media laws and the freedom of expression and information. Good afternoon. The legal situation in which this manipulation takes place, as mentioned by my colleague, is a clear violation of the Law 200 of 2011 on the part of the Galician audio media and audiovisual companies. The idea is to strengthen the independence of Galician broadcasting, to respect the executive administrative powers, and to ensure the veracity and access to impartial television in order to have access to informed and transparent public opinion. And for this, the law has a number of measures that almost 13 years later have not been followed, namely electing a Director General by the Galician Parliament with a majority of 2/3 in the first round, or in a second round if a 3/5 majority is not reached. Also, having a more independent and professional management team for this network, and also specifying programs in order to ensure over a 3-year period with adequate and stable financial resources made available by the autonomous community of Galicia to compensate the CRTVG Corporation for the provision of public radio and television services. The approval of the professional statute and the creation of the Council of Newsrooms as an internal body for the participation of information professionals from the CRTVG Corporation in order to ensure the independence, veracity and objectivity of news content. The right of access for representative social and political groups as an institution intended to guarantee regular and systematic democratic participation of Galician society. The approval of the law creating the Audiovisual Authority, an independent regulatory entity responsible for monitoring compliance with audiovisual regulations. The guarantees that have been mentioned are laid out in Article 5 of the Freedom of Media Regulation, which was recently approved by the European Parliament. This regulation is mandatory and directly applicable in all member states. Therefore, it is our request to insist that it is complied with in the case of public audiovisual media in Galicia. This is necessary in order to bring an end to the manipulation of news and to ensure the quality of democracy. Thank you very much for your attention and good afternoon.
Vielen Dank und ich habe Sie.
Well, thank you very much. I did want to give you a chance to finish your statements, and let's see if we can save a bit of time on the summary at the closing remarks. But let's first of all hear from the European Commission. We have Sabina Zatskova and Carlos Perez Maestro on the list. I don't know who will be taking the floor first, whether both of you will be taking the floor.
No, nicht hier? Oh.
Hello, good afternoon.
Stop, one minute.
Okay.
They're not speaking
I have. Ich habe nochmal den Hinweis bekommen.
Well, I've been informed, and I'm afraid I didn't notice, that the petitioners, it seems, used the Galician language to present the statements. The interpreters did their best. I was able to hear. Did anyone?
German translation? For me, there was a translation. No Spain or what? Was? No Portuguese? Excuse me, I'm asking again.
Não, era espanhol, mas não era certo totalmente português.
Wasn't?
Eu falo português.
I speak Portuguese. I can speak Portuguese, or I can speak Galician. They're different languages. I do believe that they were speaking Portuguese. Perhaps the interpreters can confirm or deny this. Yes, indeed. Okay. Well, in that case, it was Portuguese. We, in fact, are bilingual in our country. And so that makes us very competent Portuguese speakers. So the question was actually a separate one. Was everyone able to follow? That's the key question. Was every member able to follow? So I thank the interpreters. We were able to follow the presentation. Somehow it worked, and I'd now give the floor to the European Commission to address the room in one of the official languages of the European Union.
You can speak what you want, but in the official language of the European Union.
Thank you. I'm Bulgarian, but I will speak English. I think it will be easier. So good afternoon, everybody. What I wanted to update you on today is the recently approved European Media Freedom Act, which was adopted by the Council, approved by Council and Parliament only last month. And in particular, how it tackled the public service media in Europe. With the EMFA, the intention actually with the provisions on public service media was really to strengthen the independent functioning of these media and their editorial independence. And this especially in view of the particular role that is played by this media in order to ensure quality and diverse information. And what we did actually with the provisions, what we have now in place, which covers public service media, are several safeguards, which I will enumerate briefly for everyone. So first of all, we have the fact that member states need to ensure, once the regulation starts applying, that their public service media are editorially and functionally independent, and that they provide in an impartial manner a plurality of information and opinions to their audiences. Of course, this is always in accordance with their public service remit, which is defined at national level. The second safeguard, which is also very important, concerns the appointment and dismissals of the head of management and the members of the management boards of public service media. And there, the aim is to guarantee the independence, as I said in the beginning, but also the fact that certain procedures need to be in place for appointing and dismissing these persons, and they need to be transparent, open, effective, and non-discriminatory. Another safeguard, which is also very important, concerns the financial resources for public service media, which need to be adequate, sustainable, and predictable. And finally, I wanted to mention something which concerns the monitoring of all these provisions. What we have in EMFA is that member states will be the ones monitoring the application of these provisions, and the member state will have to designate independent authorities or bodies, or put in place certain mechanisms which are free from government influence to monitor the compliance, essentially, with these safeguards that I just enumerated to you. So I hope this is providing some useful update as requested by the committee. Thank you.
Gut, vielen Dank. Ich mache die erste.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Let's move to the first round. For the members of the committee, first of all, Mr. Milan Mon. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the petitioners for having come to this parliamentary committee. Well, the European Commission and this Parliament, and I think the Junta de Galicia, the Galician authorities, are committed to the freedom of press, pluralism, and media freedom and other freedoms of expression. Now, the presentation we heard about the radio and TV broadcaster from Galicia, in fact, it doesn't constitute manipulation as frequency. The supposed manipulation and lack of objectivity are, in fact, judgments, value judgments and opinions, if you ask me. And so, not really subject to legal rulings or any such decision. In 2021, the Ombudsman of Galicia, in fact, dismissed a similar petition which presented similar arguments and ruled and that the TV broadcaster was, in fact, acting correctly, and that there were no limitations of freedom of pluralism and media pluralism amongst the workers. So the 2005-2009 term, there was an obligation on the broadcaster to stick to plurality and objectivity. Coming to this petition now, generally, there are legal decisions and public authorities deciding that they don't back this case. The corporation has some 90 staff, and it seems that the Black Friday protests have a participation from less than 5.5% of the total staff of the organization, which seems a rather low level of participation. Now, the accusations of reprisals against those participating in protests, well, most cases have been dismissed. When it comes to protest actions, there was just one case, Mr. Jimenez, that case that was mentioned, so one worker affected. Now, the European Commission statement stated that the European Union has very limited competence. Protocol 19 recognizes the member states' authority when it comes to deciding on how to manage their public media. And so it's when it comes to investigating individual cases in Galicia and Spain, we have the Spanish ombudsman who, on the whole, have been agreeing with the broadcaster and the way it has acted. Law 9/11 states that there is ongoing controls and the control body to check on this. And this is a very stringent and effective system. And the new audiovisual media law from the European Union, in fact, states that public broadcasters need to be managed in a transparent and non-discriminatory manner. So when you come here talking about manipulation of public broadcasting in Galicia, well, this is something that you could say of national broadcasting in Spain with Sanchez entering a government, and we're seeing all kinds of staffing decisions and militants being placed in high positions in Galicia as well. So we have data from the CIS saying that we have data to suggest that, in fact, the general public do feel that the information they get is trustworthy and impartial. So I don't think this is a well-founded petition. I think there is political motive, and it can be damaging to the public broadcaster in Galicia. So I would urge the colleagues from the European Commission to not keep this petition open and to close it. Thank you.
Vielen Dank für die SD.
Thank you very much. Now, on behalf of the SND, Mr. González. Thank you. Well, this case is all about dignity. We're talking here about the dignity of journalists who simply want to do their job in accordance with their professional standards, professional ethics, and do their jobs, and they're not allowed to do it. And the television broadcaster and radio broadcaster is preventing them from doing their jobs. And we've seen this over the past few years, ever since Mr. Feixó was elected regional chief of the government, and we saw this in Galicia. We saw manipulation, shameless manipulation to back the Partido Popular political line. And we've heard it very clearly that people were being castigated because someone was trying to take away speaking time from other parties in the television broadcasting, and that was in a time of election. So I thank the petitioners for bringing this petition to our attention. It's very important for us to be aware of what's happening on Galician radio and television. It is really shocking. And so Mr. Milan Mon, well, he's saying it's just a handful of journalists. Well, it's the ones who are brave, the ones who dare to do so, the ones who are facing up to the system and who... Now, we have seen cases of harassment as well. And so these are not the good standards that we expect when it comes to defending the freedom of expression in my own country. There isn't any kind of supervision or guarantee. And so from my political group, we have a very clear position. We will ask for this petition to remain open and to be heard. Well, the Partido Popular and other right-wing parties and friends from the far right quite often like to bring issues on Venezuela and what have you to the European Parliament and manipulation of information. But truly, what I see is the biggest form of manipulation of information that we see is when we look at the television programs in Galicia and how they back the PP line. And of course, what we see here is flagrant, obvious cases of manipulation, and it's been going on for years. So now it's high time for the Galician broadcasters to serve the interests of the people, not serve the interests of political parties. The Galician people know this full well. And so we ask for this petition to be heard. And for once, these journalists' voices need to be heard. The journalists who've been shouting for their right, defending their right to do their jobs. Thank you. Well, thank you. I don't see anyone from the Renew group. And now for the Greens, Ana Miranda. Oh.
Muito obrigada, Presidente. Quero dar a bem-vinda.
Thank you very much. Can I begin by welcoming the representatives from the broadcaster of Galicia and from my own country. Now, ever since the first petition was closed in the past legislature, and we're seeing opposition from the right wing and far right trying to block this petition, what we finally see is an attempt to get justice for the workers and journalists. So I welcome you. They have a Friday protest every Friday. We're seeing 367 cases of manipulation, lack of impartiality, lack of objective reporting, and violation of workers' rights. And so, me as a Galician MEP, also are affected by these attacks, and our work in the European Parliament is being damaged and affected. And this, in a time of the Galician elections in February, we were seeing all sorts of discriminatory and absurd statements being made. And so the far-right candidate, what we saw is that the far-right fortunately obtained no seats. And it's also a great shame that the television broadcaster is not present here. That also speaks volumes. And so we need to ensure that the workers can work for an impartial media service. We have serious violations and legal cases, unlike what we heard from the EPP, from the PP member. You're misinformed, I'm afraid. Mr. Feijóo and Mr. Rueda wanted the TV and radio broadcasters to serve the political parties, to serve the Galician government and authorities. Well, we have no impartiality, and there's no way. We have a law that prohibits the use of public broadcasters for political means and ends. And so, on behalf of my political group, I'd like to call for this petition to remain open. And we've seen so many obstacles placed in its way. And after all this, we had a positive decision from the Parliament administration saying that there needed to be a debate on this, and so we referred to the new legislative framework in the European Union, which needs to be applied, and that there should be no further cases of manipulation in the media and broadcasting services in Galicia. And so we will continue with this struggle, and we feel this petition must stay open, therefore. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, und für die ECR hat jetzt das Wort.
Well, thank you very much. Now, on behalf of the ECR, Ms. De La Pisa.
Presidente, estimados diputados.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, I'm just going to be conveying the ECR position, and that is to close this petition. Thank you.
Das war kurz und schmerzlos.
Well, that was short and painless.
Unsere Kollegin Frau Sanz, richtig?
Ja. Ms. Sanz.
Sí, gracias. Bueno.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank both petitioners. You've put forward the details of the Galician TV manipulation very clearly. As you know I support your petition. I would like to keep the petition open. And as Anna said, it hasn't been easy to bring this petition here for debate. The right and the far right tried to throw a spanner in the works 2 meetings ago, but in the end they said that we were right, and that is why we're having the debate here, as it should be. I only started as an MEP in January, but the first, or maybe the second thing that I witnessed was the attempt to block this petition, and I was very shocked at how the right and the far right behave. I don't find it strange that the EPP is doing this to the Galician public TV, because they already did this when it comes to Valencian TV. I come from Valencia, and here we have, and there we have the Valencian TV involved in the Gürtel case and the corruption there, to the point that the channels had to be closed down. I don't know if you know, you probably know that the PP were involved, and all of this had to close down. A recent EPP MEP acknowledged that this was a mistake. You can find that in the press. If you put EPP and Canal No, you'll find this. That was the name of the Valencian TV. In the previous term, we had a progressive government, so it was different, but there was a bankruptcy case, and even in court the EPP acknowledged the fact that the TV was involved in this case of corruption, the Gürtel case. So I'm not surprised that EPP is trying to get its hands on public TV, and I give you my wholehearted support.
Gut, ich eröffne jetzt die zweite Runde sozusagen.
Thank you. I'm now going to open the second round of questions. Ms. Estaras from the EPP.
Estaras, bitte.
Sí, muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, there is a delegitimization campaign when our colleague says that everything the right is doing is wrong and everything the left is doing is right. There's no point in even answering this point. I think that we should go about things differently. I'm afraid I have the floor at the moment. Thank you very much. So, the Galician Public Corporation is governed in a stable way. Its accounts are healthy and its ratings are very high up. They're leading when it comes to ratings. These channels are watched by many people. They have the support of society. There isn't a single judgment or ruling and no other decision that supports all these opinions that we've heard here today. No, none. There's only a ruling to do with transfer. But listen, I listened to you very politely. I understand that emotions are running high, but democracy is about listening to each other. So there is no judicial decision, so no ruling, no judgment or official report backing this. This is an opinion backed by a minority, and I respect this opinion, but it's not backed by any judicial decision. When you were in government with the BNG of Mrs. Miranda, and when you were in government together with the socialists, the BNG meddled so much in Galician TV that even a socialist in the Galician government said that they were really going beyond the limit, given how professional one was supposed to be. So we're talking about letters being sent left, right, and center by the members of the coalition government, and the Galician ombudsman raised her concerns, saying there was a lack of objectivity and plurality in the TV governed by those who say they're in favor of pluralism. Now, the Galician ombudsman has dealt with all these points, saying that the management is sound and this manipulation isn't accepted. So the Galician ombudsman has not said that these complaints are founded. There were elections recently, and the electoral board or committee didn't take any decisions calling into question neutrality. Well, I think that this clearly shows who is respectful and who is not. But I'm going to try and continue if I'm allowed to. So the Electoral Committee back in 2009 found 12 counts of or 12 errors. As I said, however, there's only one ruling in this relation. When it comes to all the other points, it's the Galician administration that is right. In the European Parliament, in the previous Parliament, we talked about TV3, and Mrs. Miranda said that TV3 and the neutrality of TV3 shouldn't have been debated by the Parliament. So that's quite curious. So the Central Electoral Commission also ruled on some other channels. And it says that there is a sanction because of a lack of neutrality, plurality, a lack of transparency, and information and tendentious manipulation, especially in the case of a specific journalist. Now, it was the Catalonia Audiovisual Board that also said that there was a lack of neutrality. So we had 4 cases of sanctions, and even though that was happening, Mrs. Miranda didn't think that there should have been an inquiry. Thank God that common sense prevailed, and we left the petition open. So when there were sanctions, you felt that there was no reason to investigate, and now it seems to be the opposite. So I think that what you're trying to do is delegitimize this. Now, when it comes to the BNG, there are references to confrontation, but I don't think it's the Petitions Committee should be looking at this. It's the own TV corporation that has its own rules, and it meets all the neutrality and plurality standard that it has. It's completely independent. It is not linked to the Galician regional government. And I think this shows that when there is one way of behaving when there are PPs in government and one way of behaving when it's not. So, as I said before, there was a case where even a socialist was involved. There was the whole point of Agency F. We had the embassies, we had the public prosecutor, and so many other people involved. But I find there is complete inconsistency in the proposals.
Ich gebe noch mal ganz kurz die Rednerliste.
Well, just looking at the speakers list, we have Ms. Auken for the Greens, Ms. Dancy, and Ms. Miranda. Just for 1 minute, so that, please. I've given everyone a chance to speak and to make their comments. Ms. Auken.
Only get 1 minute when you just get more than 5 minutes
That was
to the second round.
Stop. Was a misunderstanding.
No.
Only Kollegin Miranda, die wollte ja erwidern.
Just for Ms. Miranda for a supplementary comment, you can speak.
Nach Hause. Nein, du machst.
Well, we're here till the lights go out.
It's wonderful, this committee. You get so familiar to Spanish politics. And you absolutely, not you, but absolutely right that it sounds a little bit different, but in a way, in a similar way, because the way of the accusations running both ways. And but I must say to Rosa de Stakas, I didn't hear anybody saying that everything comes from the left is right and different way. I haven't heard that, and I'm listening. But I would say I think that this issue is quite important. We have discussed it several times. Some of you might remember back when we had Berlusconi, and we had a tough case on the Italian press, and what happened to the Italian press. And there was a vote in the, I think, at least in the committee, no, I think even at the plenary, which was shocking, because it was accepted that one guy could, in a way, have the total grip on the press. And I do remember that case as one of the really shocking examples of being very biased in the way the thing is doing. I think that the Commission has made a very good answer to this petition from December 23, and I think that everybody should read it carefully, because it calls for a plurality, at least in the public media, those who are public, public financed. And as far as I can hear for the examples, you have troubles in Galicia. That's clear. You have troubles. And for me, I have followed ombudsman institution in many countries, and I can say, stop up.
Oh, sorry.
And she's incredible. But I have tried to stop her several times. Sorry. No, but I just say that I think that we, of course, should keep it open, but we should also broaden the perspective, saying that what is happening in member states when the public media is taken over by a government in a way where it's not possible for journalists to make their work properly. And we can see, it's not here to discuss United States, but I think many of us are very worried what happens to the public debate, the public fora there, where it's difficult to really investigate what is said, what is happening. And I hope that all of us will, not even keep this petition open, but also keep it as a pattern of what we have to look into. And I should stress that so much, because still I have seldom seen such a good answer from the Commission as this one here, and it's so clear. And of course it cannot come forward if things has been investigated in court. But I must say that even if you can refer to, I have seen several also from Spain, ombudsman, which was very linked to a political party. I saw that. I have a big case in Madrid when the first was here in the Petitions Committee, and it was clear that you didn't have an impartial ombudsman there. That's quite clear. And so we cannot just say the ombudsman said. It is not the same as a court has said it, and I haven't read how the ombudsman has investigated this here, but I don't think it for itself goes. And I think that the things that the petitioners come forward with were so convincing that I really hope we will keep it open, and the next Parliament will look carefully into it, and we in the next Parliament will really respect that the Petitions Committee should not be in the hands of any party. Thank you.
Jetzt Kollegin Danzi, please take the floor.
Presidente, grazie.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, colleagues. I'd like to thank Mrs. Auken. She reminded everyone about the fact that the European Parliament looked at the Italian TV monopoly situation. It was extremely useful in raising awareness on this. I mean, the problem hasn't been resolved, but I think that this is important. The committee has always battled hard to defend an important pillar, the freedom of the press and media. So now we've got the Media Freedom Act, and we're going to implement it. So it's extremely important to keep these petitions open so that this can be a kind of beacon, if you like. At the moment in Italy, we have a new MP that manages a lot of money and financial assets, and he's buying, the AGI press agency, one of the most free and independent. So I think that we need to ask ourselves why people are going to vote for an institution that does or looks at these things. I think that we play a very important role. We have to keep these petitions open. We have to keep these issues open because they have an impact on fundamental rights. Freedom of press, freedom of thought, freedom of opinion make up a very important pillar that we've got to protect. So I would like to ask our committee to keep this petition open.
Ja, und Kollege Miranda.
Ms. Miranda, for 1 minute.
Okay. I will close the
Sì,
discussion.
vejo. Muito obrigada.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I see that our colleague has read the manifesto of BNG, which is the second most important party in Galicia. And I see that you've read the BNG's manifesto, the Galician National Bloc Party. And I can repeat this again if you haven't heard, because it's all lies. You've just read a script from the People's Party, and I would ask you please not to mention me again in any of your statements. Thank you.
Gut, vielen Dank. Ich komme jetzt zur Zusammenfassung.
Thank you. Now moving to the wrapping up. Generally, what we do have is, I've taken notes. Just wanted to check if there's a different diverging opinion on the matter of opening or keeping the petition open or closing it. And so in the event of a split, there is a possibility of giving the decision to the coordinators, but on this particular occasion we can't do it because we're at the end of the parliamentary term and there's not going to be another coordinators meeting. So that option falls away. And so the second option, how do we actually decide whether we have a vote? We can normally always have a weighted vote, and so we ask the political groups to state their position, and that we use the weight and strength in the parliament as a way to determine. And can I just check that this is the voting system that we're using in order to double check that we agree on the voting system? The EPP would like to close this petition. The SND would like to keep it open. SND, keep it open, yes. The Greens, keep it open as well. ECR would like to close. The Left would like to keep it open. Correct? Right. To keep it open then. And so, if you add everything together, EPP plus ECR for close and the others for keeping open, that we have is at 12-9 in favour of closing the petition. That would be the result of the vote. And then if the discussion were to continue, then there would have to be further discussion in the next Petitions Committee. You would like to take the floor? Yes, please be brief.
Voy a intervenir ahora en español.
I'll be speaking Spanish because I'd like to address those from the EPP, because if you all come out here together to present a front. Now, please, it's my turn to talk. Chair, you always respect everyone else, so I try and respect others as well. This is genuine manipulation. The Galician TV isn't here today. The arguments you're putting forward are not valid. There are many more rulings and decisions, and there's Articles 218 and 200 as well. It's not about losing. You don't live in Galicia, Mrs. Estaras. You get the PP, Mr. Reda and co. to send you a note, and you read that note, and you tell lies. You know how to do that very well. We want our own high-quality TV. And that's what you were doing in the TVG. Now, we've got all the MEPs who have turned out here, and yes, I respect you individually, but you've come here as a group to back this manipulation. Thank you.
Ich gebe noch mal jetzt das Wort.
Well, I'd like to now give the floor once again to the group that would like to close the petition. Just for the minutes, can I check, just ensure that the weighted vote was the system that was agreed on. Every group had a chance to state its position. There's no instruction note or any such thing. It's just the vote that was taken on the basis of the weighting of each political group. Now let's hear the counter-argument. Let's hear a speaker against that, and then I'm sure we will be able to come back to the Spanish domestic matters at a future meeting.
Yes, this will be my last statement. It's strange to do it after a vote, but democracy is about majorities and minorities and respecting the majority. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. We won, but not because we've all filed in en masse.
Venido a defender su posición.
You've come to defend your position, and we've come to defend our position. I respect the position that you've been defending, but I would really appreciate it if you respect what we've been defending. That's what democracy is all about. But obviously, we have an example of what they think is democracy. They think that democracy is about what they want. So we've got the Galician public broadcaster, the TV. There is political pluralism, objectivity, neutrality. The Ombudsman said this was the case. They didn't when they were, she didn't when they were in power. But this is one of the broadcasters that can be an excellent example of fundamental rights, neutrality and pluralism. Thank you.
Con licenza, señor presidente.
Hoffnungslos überzogen worden ist, dass wir jetzt schließen. So, ich begrüße dann, Entschuldigung.
I'm sorry. The petitioners had 5 minutes speaking time earlier on, and you spoke for over 10 minutes, and so I'm sorry, but the wrapping up time has already been used. Could we come in with a response, please, says the petitioner.
A lot of what was said were lies. It's not true.
Extrem gnädig.
In fact, was very indulgent.
Der Petent hat 5 Minuten Redezeit. Die Petenten.
The petitioners had 5 minutes of speaking time and spoke for 11 minutes.
You said that we had 5 minutes to respond, and we haven't had that opportunity.
Geschlossen wegen der Überziehung. Ich rufe jetzt.
This item is closed now. We move to item 20.
It's not fair, President. They should reply because it's the right of every petitioner to reply in this committee. They need 2 minutes to reply to the no present deputies of the Partido Popular. They are no present. They left.
Nein, die sind jetzt, werden nicht ganz fair.
Well, the members left the room because the item was closed.
Ich sag's nochmal.
You did.
The chair.
Redezeit, 2 Minuten.
Peter, you didn't say it beforehand that they used their speaking time.
Bitte?
No, you didn't say
12
that.
Minuten.
Okay. I'm going to proceed with item 20, says the chair.
Okay, sorry,
Seven signatures against the construction of the biodigester for waste treatment.
Presidente.
Die Petenten sind anwesend.
We have item 20. The petitions are present, and the petitions have 5 minutes to make their statements.
Chair, all petitioners have the right to respond for 2 minutes. You'll give this opportunity to absolutely all of them. What you cannot do now is decide who speaks and who doesn't.
La regla 218.
It's under Rule 218.
Right to reply.
¿En base a qué criterio no deja hablar a estos?
So what is the justification for not letting these petitioners respond, whereas others have been given that opportunity? So what justification do you have to not allow these people the right to reply? Can anyone explain why these people are not given the right to reply? What is the regulation, what is the rule or the criteria that's being applied here?
If I give you 1 minute speaking time.
President,
Reply.
Chair,
there's 1 minute speaking time, and then
open. They didn't have they didn't come. They didn't speak. So
I'm sorry, the petition is closed, says the chair.
the rule 218.3. I request the rule 218.
Nicht, dass wir aus dem Ruder laufen. Wir haben folgende Beschlüsse.
We have taken the following decisions using weighted voting.
Geschlossen.
We'll have to refer this. We don't believe that this has been closed because the petitioners haven't been given the right to reply. And so we ask for Rule 218.3 to be applied.
You're asking for the petitioners to give their closing remarks. I was actually being swayed now. If the petitioners can promise to take just 1 minute, then I will do that. I will grant that request. But please bear in mind that the other speakers need to come. The other petitioners need a chance to speak. Please just stick to your comments. So the petitioners, once again, to sum up on item 19. You may have the floor now.
Yes, I'll be very brief. We cannot say that all of those cases that we included in our report are all cases of manipulation. The Gürtel case, for example, which also included the past of Palogres. But this is not an opinion. This is not a value judgment. These are facts. And we're here, Andrea and myself, because we are representing the majority of workers of CRTVG. There was a consensual law, but it's not being applied, and the law has to be applied properly. There are 5 very important points in order to ensure the freedom of the press, and these are not being followed since 2011 in Galicia. We believe that we are representatives of the workers of Galician TV and not of Spanish TV or any other TV network. And so we condemn what is happening in Galician TV. And even though the audience rates are very high, the law has to be followed, especially by the People's Party.
Thank you. Now we've heard the summary. Let me announce once again that there was a majority in favour of closing the petition. We move to item 20, and I'd like to welcome the petitioners for item 20 very warmly. And let me state once again that the petitioners have an opportunity to present their petition for 5 minutes. Then it will be for the Commission to speak, then the members of Parliament, and then the petitioners once again will have a chance to sum up for 2 minutes. And I will have to be very strict, I'm afraid, so that we need to ensure that the opening statement stick to the 5-minute speaking time. So, on the next petition.
Construction of a biodigester for waste treatment. Die Petenten begrüße ich.
Welcome to the petitioner.
Who takes the floor? Then